Homelessness just became a crime in Hungary. Again. Under the new ban written into the country's constitution, people caught living on the streets multiple times over a period of 90 days can face fines, mandatory public work, and even imprisonment. After several warnings, police officers are even allowed to destroy people's personal belongings.
Amúgy akik hozták ezt a törvényt, fogalmuk sincs arról szerintem, hogy milyen élni így az utcán.
But believe it or not, this isn't the first time Hungary has enacted this policy. So how did we get back here? It started in April 2012, when, in the midst of a widespread economic crisis, the Hungarian government began enforcing a law that criminalized homelessness. Unemployment and poverty were on the rise. In a 2010 survey on homelessness, 14% of respondents said they lost their home because they couldn't pay their rent or other bills. But in November that year, following months of protests, the Constitutional Court struck down the law as unconstitutional after the European Federation of National Organizations working with the homeless pointed out that, among other reasons, it, quote, punished a social status rather than a specific behavior. Then, in March 2013, the Constitution was amended to allow Parliament and local governments to ban homelessness, and this time added provisions to keep the court from striking it down again. Hundreds of homeless people were charged with misdemeanors between then and January 2015, when the Supreme Court struck down parts of the decree for being too vague. Years of back and forth and fear-mongering followed. Then, in June 2018, right-wing Prime Minister Viktor Orbán's government passed legislation, which went into effect in October, stating that, quote, using a public space as a habitual dwelling shall be prohibited. The government's reasoning? It says the law will save the lives of homeless people and, quote, serves the interest of society as a whole. But attorneys and activists are fighting back against this legislation. Hard. Some say that criminalizing homelessness effectively means criminalizing poverty, and tens of thousands of Hungary's homeless citizens will be left without the proper social support systems in place.
We have more than 20,000 homeless people. In the organizations, we have around 10,000 places where they can sleep.
That's Angelika Mihalik. She works for a local church in Budapest that works to feed and house homeless populations. She speculates that there might be other motivating factors behind the ban, like creating enough fear among people experiencing homelessness to at least temporarily clear them off the streets. But studies have shown that though laws like these may temporarily decrease the visibility of the homeless, they tend to ultimately be more expensive and less effective than other solutions, like treatment programs or permanent low-cost housing. After the ban went into effect, Mihalik and her colleagues expected homeless folks to flood the shelters and food banks, but that's not what happened.
Almost nobody came. They disappeared. They are not visible anymore, but they are not in the system either.
Maybe, she says, because they're afraid. Several people have already been arrested and charged under the new law. And as temperatures drop, the issue becomes more urgent. Although the government has said it's providing funding for more shelters, Mihalik says these shelters are severely under-resourced, overcrowded, and often bug-infested. The language of the ban also says the government will, quote, strive to help, rather than committing to helping.
If they say it's forbidden to live on the streets, the other part has to be, okay, but I, as a state, I promise you, I take care of you and I give you some kind of shelter. But they didn't write this.
That might not be all that surprising, given what human rights groups say is just one part of a larger slew of human rights violations being committed under the Hungarian government. Under Prime Minister Orbán, the government has passed a law making it a crime to help refugees and asylum seekers, cracked down on independent media, and banned gender studies courses from universities because, quote, people are born either male or female. The EU says the new homelessness law is one example of why it's voted to sanction Hungary and potentially rescind its EU voting rights. Local Hungarian legal organizations plan to challenge the homelessness ban in the Constitutional Court. But thanks to the amendment built into the Constitution in 2013 that allows the criminalization of the homeless, it could be an uphill battle.